Let it roll.
Hello, everyone. Today we have on with us the awesome and amazing VP of the Gary, Indiana NAACP branch, Mr. Robert Buggs. I'm so happy that you chose to come on tonight, Mr. Robert Buggs. He is an expert. He's been teaching on civil rights. He is a civil rights activist here in Northwest Indiana. So today we're going to be talking about um, the CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, and civil rights. So, Mr. Buggs, I'll let you lead us into the conversation, and we're just going to talk about the CRA and civil rights and how it affects our community. How's that sound, Mr. Buggs?
Sounds fine to me. First of all, Ms. Barrett, I want to thank you for inviting me on this program because it's information that this community really needs. Back in a long time ago when I was in college getting a master's degree, I did a paper on the Community Reinvestment Act. So I went to a local bank and asked them to let me see the book so I could find out who they were loaning money to, all of the demographics, where they're located, the gender, and they act like they didn't know what I was talking about. And that's why I'm so glad that you came to this community because the local banks that we have here currently, they can't make decisions. They have to refer me to the headquarters of the main branch. So why are you here then? You can't make a decision. But this is what the Community Reinvestment Act is all about, to reinvest into the community. And every bank, can you hear me? Can
Yes,
you,
sir. Yes, sir. I can hear
yeah,
you just fine. I just got you up there
yeah.
because
Every bank have a document, a book of the Community Reinvestment Act so the citizens can go in and review that book to find out how much money they're loaning, who they loaning it to, and all of the demographics. But they don't. I went into Centia Bank and asked them to let the see the book. They took about 20 minutes and came back and said, well, you have to go to the headquarters and you have to make an appointment. I said, make an appointment for what? I just want to review the book. Well, we don't have it here. So that goes to show you how welcome you are to come here and to explain to the people what the CRA is, what it can do for the community. I was very saddened to listen to the radio the other day, and they was talking about you, and this one gentleman called in and said, we need an expert to explain it to us. Now, who knows best about what goes on in your bank than you? It's your program. You brought it in months ago. You explained to the folks when you had the grand opening of what you were going to do. If they had any questions to call in, but we still have, I call them, shouldn't say this, but Sambos that they used to not having anything. So when somebody offered them something, they suspect, very suspect of it. Why? Why they giving this to us? So I called in the radio and I told them, I said, well, prior to her coming, what was the banks that are here? What did they give you? Did you even know anything? Did you even know anything about the Community Reinvestment Act? So
right.
thank you.
Well, Mr. Buggs, I'm just appreciative that God aligned me in a way that I could meet you because you are brave, you are bold, you get out here and you really truly fight on behalf of the citizens of Gary in Northwest Indiana. I know that personally, and I want to thank you for your lifelong work, and it means a lot. And I thank you. But when it comes to the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act, and how it affects us here in Gary, first of all, I want to let everyone know the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act, was a law enacted at the federal level in 1977. So this law has not been enforced since its inception until just recently. I did some research once I was brought on to my company to see if I could find any information about the Community Reinvestment Act. And there was little to no activity, documentation, or persons talking about the experiences or the things that they were doing in their particular community concerning CRA. So when I went to those that were titled CRA, unfortunately, they had the job, but I think CRA is something you really have to have in your heart. CRA deals with redlining. It was instituted on the basis of racism, discrimination, redlining. And that's kind of scary for corporate people to deal with redlining, to even speak the redlining and the harm done not to minorities, but to Black communities.
Thank you.
So to be able to stand up and say, we need reinvestment, not necessarily solely in the minority community. We, Black people, in all statistics, in all sectors of social, economic, however you want to call it, are the most devastated group of people in this nation. We are Black people. So if President Biden is willing to say we need to help out the Black community, then other people like myself, Black people, we should have enough courage to say we do need reinvestment in our Black community. It's okay that we get reinvestment in other communities, that's for sure. But statistically, we're the most unemployed. We're taking advantage of the most with predatory lending. We have very high insurance policies, very high deductibles in our zip codes. We, for 3-4 decades, could not get mortgages to refinance our home or renovate our home. I have been doing mortgages. I was doing mortgages 20 years ago, and in between time too. And what I found is that most of the time, a renovation loan, they had plenty of renovation loans. I was one of the loan officers that worked with different mortgage companies to make sure that people had the money to renovate their home and cause their home to be worth more. Mm-hmm. But those renovation loans, they never made it to places like Gary, Indiana, which is why a lot of our homes are so dilapidated. So when I came in from working from the civil rights standpoint, I've worked with the NAACP. I've researched civil rights. I went to school to become a paralegal. I didn't complete it, but that was my interest, civil rights. And I had my heart, I wanted to be a civil rights attorney. But I have children, and I decided to join the NAACP in North Carolina. And I just helped people as much as possible then. I'm home now, and the Reinvestment Act will help. Like right now, we have a grant for rehabbing homes. I want to say, if I have not been able to call you back, do not charge it to my heart. It's because I received 500 plus calls in 2 weeks. 500. That's about 25 plus calls a day. And it was like, I was picking up this phone, picking up this phone, picking up this phone. My coworkers picking up this phone. I had corporate calling me. We got a phone call. I had all type of breaks. We got a phone call. We got a phone. I had emails coming in. I can't even count the emails. This person, and it was application overload. Oh, sorry, women. So it was application overload, and only because there is such a great need here in Gary, Indiana. So if I got over 500 calls for a rehab loan for people who actually really need it, no joke, I'm getting applications from so many seniors. Mostly all of my applicants are from seniors that's been living in their homes for 30 years, that's never been able to rehab their home or little, if any, because of just the lack of ability to get a mortgage or a loan or insurance to even do their part. Because, sometimes the insurance company is charging $2,500 to $10,000 in Gary for a deductible.
Absolutely.
And that's redlining. That's actually a violation because they don't charge that type of deductible in whiter communities. They don't. It's $500, $250, $1,000, which makes it easier if you have an insurance claim that's a legitimate insurance claim. It makes it easier for them to get their houses rehab based on storm damage. And being at that, it's my job to be able to assess damage on a home. I've done that. It's a lot of storm damage that Gary has, been through because we're right on the lake. The wind damage, blowing off shingles. I mean, it's a lot of things. But do you have any? Am I missing anything? Should I be discussing anything in particular, Mr. Buzz?
I just want to give them a couple of examples of some of the things that you mentioned. First of all, I'm going to explain redlining, but to people know what we're talking about. Indiana is primarily a Republican state, so they literally take a red pen and go around to get the most of the people that they want to vote for them, and they exclude the black folks. I'm just going to put it just like it is. That's what they call redlining. To give you a couple of examples why I experienced it myself, I was getting some car insurance some years ago, and I got a really, really, really good rate. And I told them I lived in Glen Park. Well, they didn't know that Glen Park was a part of Gary. Me with my big mouth trying to explain, and told them Glen Park is in Gary. Oh, wait a minute. Glen Park is in Gary, yes. Went back and went up about 50% immediately. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know it was Gary, and he didn't want to, he was getting his foot in his mouth, but they did that.
Did you say 50%?
Yeah,
50%. 50.
Absolutely.
Because and I know, because I've been in the business to know. I know. I just want to make sure we hear what Mr. Robert Buggs says. Just because they found out it was Gary, his insurance went up 50%. Go ahead, Mr. Buggs.
Yeah, Glen Park sounds like a fancy name. Glen Park. Oh, right. So I went to recently. I went to Cynthia Bank when they came back to Gary maybe a year or two ago to get a loan. Now my house is paid off, so they wanted me to use my house for collateral. All of my income, my pension, things from the military or whatever, and I was denied. And I asked them why. They said, "Well, we did a credit report on you, and you come back to you owe some taxes." I said, "I don't know nothing about it. How much was it? $115." I said, "You're going to take my house for collateral and deny me a loan for $115?" Well, yes, that's another example. Well, they didn't make it. That's what the headquarters, where headquarters is for Cynthia Bank, told them that I was denied. So that's when I asked them about the community reinvestment book. And it took them 20 minutes of going back in the back room and coming back and telling me, "We don't have it here. You have to make an appointment to go to the corporate, go out to the main, wherever that is also, So you're the only one that actually make a decision in Gary. And I just want people to know that. It's sad, so sad. This one gentleman I was telling about on the radio, they some people in Gary are not used to having anything. So when you come in and explain to them that I'm a grant money that you don't have to pay back, that you can get if you qualify to fix up your house. That's what community reinvestment, that was its intended purpose. When you say give, look like a light went off. No, no, we need someone else to talk, tell us this. We need an expert to break this down. We're not used to free. But he get very negative about it.
I know, and that's a part of being a reinvestment, a community reinvestment act officer, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we had someone in our bank that was the Community Reinvestment Act vice president, but not everyone can carry out the duties of a Community Reinvestment Act officer, no matter how they hold the title. Um, you know, our bank has been wonderful with making sure dollars was set aside to
Mm-hmm.
give to the community. But there are some people who want to manage money like it's theirs and not
Absolutely.
give it all away. They want to keep it over here like they're going to be able to do something with it. But the only purpose of it was to give away. Well, there are people who I know who kept the money. So 5 years ago, the $2,500 grants that I've been given to nonprofits, those things could have been taking place in Gary, but they may have been concentrated other places, and it didn't make it to Gary. Well, again, my bank, who has been setting aside money for quite some time to just give away, finally said, we're just going to put a bank in
Mm-hmm.
Gary, Indiana, so that we can focus on the most devastated city in Lake County and one of probably the most devastated cities in America.
Here's one thing that I want you to know before I forget it. When I did that study at the Community Reinvestment Bank when I was in college, I finally got a hold of the book. What I found out, and which is still happening, by the way, the banks are located in Gary, Indiana, but they're giving the money to areas outside of the city of Gary, Indiana.
There
That
you go.
is, I don't want
Can you repeat that, Mr. Bugs? I mean, because
to.
Mr. Bugs, go ahead.
The banks are located within the confines of the city of Gary, Indiana, but the banks are loaning money and providing grants to people outside of the city of Gary, Indiana that don't look like nothing like me at all.
Right.
And when I challenged them on that, well, we don't make the decision. Well, what in the hell are you doing here then? I mean, do you know what reinvestment means in the community? This is the community out there, somebody else's community. They got banks out there. So why are you loaning money out there? And I became the bad guy. They didn't want to talk to me anymore. Then we got the manager, and he couldn't make any decisions either. So that's what we've been faced with until you all came in.
So let me tell you what I know about the Community Reinvestment Act, because again, when I came on board, there was absolutely no information of a person telling us what the Reinvestment Act is and how it truly affects us and how to make it work for our community. The only people that was telling us that was the institutions who are obligated by the federal law. And of course, the way that they're explaining it is on a very corporate level and not bring it down to our level. So let me bring the CRA down where we're not all into the laws and all the stipulations. Just let's talk about the CRA. CRA, it deals with the effects of redlining, the divestment of corporate money or corporations, businesses, the predatory lending of predatory loans, predatory mortgage loans, crazy interest rates. It
Absolutely.
deals with the lack of capital for businesses and how it specifically hones in on the low to moderate income, but the people who are most affected in this area, when you do a map, when we were given a map of where loans were given to low to moderate income people based on CRA, it was close to zero in Gary, Indiana.
Absolutely.
Now, it was like you said, that map was all around other places, you know, all around these other places. But Gary, it was a desert. So now let me tell you why. CRA work is extremely intense. Like if you're applying for that grant, anybody that's applied for that grant knows that the work they had to put in, the paperwork that they had to bring in. And
They've been telling me about that. I gave some people application, and they've been ringing my phone. I didn't know I had to get this. I said, "Well, you want the grant? Also, do it."
So the work of the CRA is very intense. So that's another reason why a lot of people have not even tried to really work CRA. CRA has to be a heart thing. It has to be, you really love the people you're serving. You have to really want to see people thrive that's been devastated. And then you have to be able to manage and even understand the mind frames, like you said. People can't even believe, and I do get those phone calls, they can't believe that a bank is actually giving them a grant.
Right.
I can't believe it.
Right. One other thing I want the people to know: when Miss Berry came to Gary, as most people probably know, if you don't know, the City of Gary School Corporation has been taken over by the state because of allegedly mismanaging money and not having any money. Miss Barrett sent 2 letters to the emergency manager with money up to $25,000 to provide for equipment or whatever they might want to use it for. 2 letters, one to the emergency manager, one to the chief financial officer. I have a copy of those letters. Nobody, neither one of them, even replied. But they said, hey, we are broke. We need money. The school children do not have band uniforms. Those band uniforms were back in 1975. They are dry rotted. The equipment is broken. I told them, all of them, this is what you need. Why are you having band when you don't have any band uniforms or band equipment? But I was appalled to find out that the school, and this is free money, a grant. It says it in the letter. They wouldn't even reply. That's ridiculous.
They didn't reply, and it's a shock to me. That's another conversation to me. You need to come back and talk about just on its own.
Yes,
because
about the school.
We know the history of the emergency managers in Flint. We know that even though they say they're there for the benefit of the community, and sometimes it may kind of sort of look like it, you need to really dig down and look at the real results. Like, for instance, if you have an institution coming in saying that they would like to be a part of helping the school recuperate or regrow or, become better and whatever the case may be, but the school absolutely ignores the offer, what is it? Do you want to go around talking about how awful the school system is? Do you want it to fail? Do you wish it to fail and not succeed? Because if it's money that you're looking for and that you need, whenever institutions of any kind come in and offer corporate donations or the ability to help out, if it's your goal that it succeeds, why not accept help?
Well, let me give a good example, a very good example. When this so-called emergency manager came into Gary, under the leadership of Dr. Cheryl Pruitt, the graduation rate was up about 90%. The expulsion rate was zero. The IRE score was up. MGT came in within 1 year, the graduation rate was down to 58%. IRE scores way down at the way back in 2012. Now, ironically, the manager for MGT said that academics was not their priority. It was the finances. Well, 4 years later, the finances hadn't moved. Nothing has moved. And then they had the audacity to say, some of these our so-called leaders in Gary, well, MGT is making an improvement. They went from 62% up to about 65. Hell, we was already at 90% until they came here, and it's still going down. So all of the inner cities like Detroit, everywhere they had an emergency manager, they ended up making the situation worse, and they turned them into charter schools. So they come here to make sure that they're not failing fast enough. And the people that disperse the money, the Special Unit Appeals Board in Indianapolis, when I tell them this with facts, it don't faze them. These are our children that's not getting an education, and they lie all they want to, saying, well, look what we're doing here. Look what they are lying.
Well, you know what? Civil rights. One of the things that we need to understand with our civil rights is local control. Being that I was gone for like 20 years, I experienced living in some primarily all white areas. Mm-hmm. And you're told that somehow everything can be better there. There's going to be better opportunity. I don't know, but the white areas I moved to in North Carolina, I'm coming from Gary. I never really experienced blatant racism until I went to Johnston County, North Carolina, where the seat of the KKK was. And then I found out, they'll sit the way that they'll treat your children in these schools, the racist people, is so damaging. So, but I learned a lot about their systems. And so when I came back here, what I'm seeing and what I learned down there, parental rights is king. What the school never disrespects the parents, but up here, parental rights is like not even a thing. I went to take my child to the dentist. The dentist told me I do not have the ability to go back into I'm talking about my baby was, he was like, this is about 4 or 5 years ago. So he's about 9 or 10. And it's like, no, you can't go back there. And I'm like, in North Carolina, I'm going back there with my 12 and 13 and 14-year-old. And in Valparaiso, I'm going back there with my 16, 17-year-old. What do you mean? In Gary, Indiana, I can't go back with my child and sit like any doctor's office while they are being treated. Well, and then that's one thing. And then when I started to see how parents are not really allowed to be involved in the school system, it's like they say they want you involved, but they really don't allow you to be involved. And when you do try to be involved, they try to push you out so that you can't be involved. And so I heard those type of complaints from many parents. They are not involved. They stopped caring because there's no one taking actions to really support family. Instead, it seems like they created a culture here to separate families. And I'm afraid that's a part of the redlining, the ability to separate families from back in the 70s to even when they took children away from their parents in slavery times. The devastation on a Black community that they don't respect families and parents with their children is so obvious here. So that's one thing that needs to really be addressed, where they give honor and respect to the parents who should be allowed who should be allowed to
participate in their child's education. But let me tell you what actually happened. They sort of took advantage of a sad situation. Most parents, most parents don't even attend PTA.
oh
So when the system comes in and these people come in that don't look like us, they take advantage of that. They don't care about their own children. They will complain, complain, complain. But when we get the decision makers to come to Gary, you do good if you get 15 people. So they complain about what's happening at the school, but they don't go to the schools except when
I'm gonna put I'm gonna put you on for just 1 second so you can talk. This is my daughter calling me. I'm gonna put it just for you.
okay.
Okay. And then you be able to talk. Give me 1 second.
Mhm. This is ridiculous. But thank God for Miss Barrett to come in with the Horizon Bank to try to make this community better than what it is, because there's a lot of senior citizens that are low income that try to get a loan to fix up their house. Uh, Most of them don't qualify if you're not working or your income is too low. You don't have a good credit report. Every reason in the world to deny you a loan. This is what they'll do. So then boom, the community reinvestment that come in. Okay, we're going to give you some money to reinvest and fix up your community. That a lot of people don't want. They don't understand it, and that is so sad when you try to explain it to them, and they reject it. And then you got people outside of there just taking advantage of that situation. Like I said,
Yeah.
they don't come. Most parents don't come to the PTA meeting. Uh, they won't vote. They stay at home. They complain all day. They won't vote. They
And,
don't
and,
run for
and
office.
you know what? And you know what I've come to realize is I haven't been here. I haven't been back home for a long time. I haven't. So I don't know as much as you. But I do know that you're not really welcomed to be an involved parent. You know, for me, it didn't work out that I was received very well. Um, and so um, and then when it comes to disenfranchisement, disenfranchisement happens when there is nowhere to go for due process, and or anyone that respects your rights. It seems like Gary, Indiana has experienced disenfranchisement for probably 40, 50 years, whereas you don't really have a voice, and you feel like the only option that you have is to ask somebody for help.
Mm-hmm.
When you are enfranchised, you don't ask for help. You tell them what you need, and they write bills to give you what you need in your community. But
Absolutely.
because of disenfranchisement, not respecting our civil rights, not giving us proper funding or education, we don't know how government is supposed to work. Like, for instance, local control of education supposed to come from the citizens and the parents.
Absolutely.
They're supposed to say what they want to happen with their children, curriculum, and even the school buildings. The taxpayers locally pay for schools to operate. So if it's the taxpayers' money that's paying for a school to operate, they are supposed to be able to have a say about that building. In Gary, Mr. Bugs, you know, they have done a land grab, whereas they haven't respected the rights of the taxpayers to have a say. They didn't even have a sit down about some of these buildings to say, well, what do you want to happen to this building or that building? Or how much money do you think we should, allocate to, it was, I don't remember. Like I said, I haven't been here very long, Mr. Bugs.
Here's their game plan. Jackson, Mississippi, my hometown, Detroit, Michigan. When they saw this so-called "quote unquote" takeover, The first thing they do is to eliminate or get rid of the elected board of trustees for the school board.
The people with
That's
power.
the, that's the first thing they did to us. Matter of fact, the first emergency manager told all of the principals, do not let me come into the school building unless I'm accompanied by one of her staff. Now,
You're a taxpayer and an elected official.
right,
How are they going to remove an elected official's power? But they
they
did.
did it. Now, this person doesn't look, well, I'm just going to say it like I always say it. The person is white, going to come in this city with my children, making decisions and tell me, elected by the people to represent them in the best interests of their children, that I cannot enter a school building. That my tax money, I'm working, my tax money goes to that building also. And he
Exactly.
thought that I was going to abide by that. The next emergency manager did the same thing. Mr. Bugs, if you're going into the building, call me first so I can call them. I said, I don't need you to do all that for me. I can make phone calls so I can let you find out what you're going in there for. What? Are you serious? Nowhere in the United States would that be allowed, except in a black city.
And the only reason why it's been allowed here is because we have not been properly educated about our civil rights. If we took if we looked at our city from the standpoint that we, the taxpayers, own any building here that we have paid taxes to maintain, we own that.
Absolutely.
No one person, no persons outside of our community, legally, federally, or even at the state level, has a right to override local control. Local control is based on a vote. Each person voting is supposed to be able to dictate how they want to be represented and be able to tell those they elect, like yourself, what they want their community to reflect, look like, from education to what the streets and what they need is in businesses, everything. The voter is supposed to be able to have that type of control because they're paying taxes. They're paying for that. So
Well,
what they did was they took away your power as an elected official. And when they took away your power and the whole board, they took away my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I had nowhere to go. And the citizens of Gary have had nowhere to go with the rights to due process. They told me, and you, Mr. Bugs, that the only person that can issue you due process was a white woman that's not even from Gary, Indiana, who got fired while she was over another minority Hispanic Black community school system because she let it go. It looked worse than a movie when I walked into one of her schools. The chaos. They fired her in East Chicago. But somehow they allowed this person who has been said to now be God, basically. She gets to say if you get a say, if you can even have due process, as
look what
if
happened,
she's
though.
the governor or the president of the United States.
Well, look what happened. You know, from day one, way back during the slavery days, whenever the white people wanted to disenfranchise the black, they went to the black preacher. She came in and preachers was coming out of the woodworks, up out of the ground, almost praising her for this referendum. Now, I fought against the referendum, so they talked about me, you know. And I said the referendum is a legislative act, it has to be done by somebody that's elected. The first time I was elected to the school board, it was about 5,000 voters. This time I was re-elected by 14,252. Yet I have no say-so of the emergency manager giving the school buildings to the city of Gary for $1. For $1, but they're broke. They're crying, we broke, we need money. And these are not torn down buildings. These are buildings that could sell easily for $200,000 or $300,000.
Or even millions.
And then on top of that, the elected school board now don't even know what's going on. We read it in the paper.
The
I think,
elected, let me repeat that. The people elected Mr. Robert Buggs and other school board officials. They are not even being given, as elected officials, any information about the school system. I want y'all to understand the level of disenfranchisement. Because if Mr. Buggs doesn't know what's going on, I have no one to call and say, Mr. Buggs on the school board, you know, we got this problem, that problem, or can you tell me what's going on? He can't tell me, the community. He can't help me now. That's how they disenfranchised an entire city.
and when I go into a school building, I have to sign in. Sign in. Well, I said, why is this? Well, we want to know who's coming into school. How many people don't know Robert Buggs? I mean, you talk about me all the time, you know who I am, the president of the advisory board. So I'm just going to advise y'all that this is my building. If you don't think I pay taxes, I took my tax, while I pay my real estate taxes. At the bottom, it says school. So that entitles me to go into any building. It's a public building.
It's a public building.
Public building. But they have actually came over, and the people that's elected to speak for you, we don't have any say. So when people who live in hundreds of miles away from me are making decisions and paying these people big money and giving them bonuses to do this.
And everyone with the elective power to make decisions about our city and school system, they are all white, and none of them live in Gary, Indiana.
None.
So every person that the state of Indiana has allowed to be to take over the Gary school system, every person with the power to vote, every last one of them is white, and none of them live in Gary. And that is the most biggest violation of rights. That is the entire city of Gary has been disenfranchised because none of those people are reachable. They don't call you back. You can't put in a complaint to them. They tell you, you got to go back to the one emergency manager who I know for a fact won't give a due process hearing, even though a person can be legally able to receive one. I've never seen in all my years of civil rights putting forth complaints, I've never seen a so-called officer of the state be able to wholly, with all knowing knowledge, deny you a hearing and due process. But that's what they believe they have the right to do under the state with this emergency manager. And if this woman who is white feels like she has the power to say, you cannot pass, we will not respect your civil rights, you don't have a voice, I'm not even going to let you talk, I'm not going to give you time to even speak. That to me, when I've done the research on white supremacy and how white supremacists have been able to take over and do so many awful, evil things, is when they don't respect the law to allow people to protest or to allow truth to be spoken. And they'll just do whatever they want to do. They take away the rights of the people and do whatever they want to do. Now you think about history when Black people did not have rights to have a say and did not have rights to represent themselves. And you think about what the results are. Devastation. That's what this emergency manager is doing right now.
And when I complain to the people that appointed the emergency manager and that pays the emergency manager, guess what they told me? She's doing a good job. So that leads me to believe that the ultimate end goal was to destroy the city of Gary by any means necessary. If you keep the people that is elected to represent the people, keep them quiet, so to speak, ignore them totally, that's what they're doing. And then we have some leaders, not all, but some elected officials downstate doing a good job. And then I found out, lo and behold, that they getting contracts. Now that's selling out your own people. I'm just going to tell it like it is. I don't care what they think about me. Facts are facts. When they was running
Wow.
around the referendum, these people was rewarded by contracts. Now they had to know that I was going to find out sooner or later,
Wow.
and I told them that. I told them exactly what was going to happen. These people that look like me don't represent us. They are against us
Wow.
for their own personal reason. That is deplorable.
And it's not the first time.
No, no, no.
Martin Luther King went through this. It's
Yeah.
historically documented that there are people who look like us that really want to inform our people, empower our people. And then there are some that are filled with greed and the desire to have power that
Those
will
those
sell us
three
out.
those three civil rights workers that got killed in Mississippi was snitched on by a black man to the Klan way back, and it goes on all the time.
It goes on all the time.
One was on TV not too long ago in a documentary that played. He was a paid informant by the FBI.
Oh yeah, the Hampton,
Yeah.
the Black Panthers.
No, he wasn't. I'm talking about no, he wasn't a paid informant, but there was somebody that informed on him. You know.
Yeah, not the movie about the Black Messiah and about Fred Hampton. The informant in that movie, like you're saying, was black.
It's always black, yeah, always.
They can't get to us now. You know that's a whole nother story.
Right,
I'll go into that spiritual fight another day.
Right, by like I say, by some of the black preachers that misrepresent the truth to the people, and they go in the pulpit every Sunday as if nothing goes on, and that is sad, very sad. And our elected officials, they act like the other ones, they don't know what to do. So what they do, look out for themselves. And then when you say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Now we got two down there now that's actually doing something. Senator Melton and
yes, Senator Eddie Melton is really down there doing his job.
When he came in, and day one, the plan was to dissolve the school district in Gary and send the students to outside of the city of Gary. And Senator Melton told them that wouldn't look too good. So they came up with this Senate Bill 567. But when it went to the House of Representatives, which is totally lily white and racist, they watered it down, totally watered it down. And as that wasn't good enough, that one didn't eliminate the school board. So this guy lives down there almost in Kentucky, Tim Brown. He came up with this House Bill 1315 that eliminated the board of trustees for the school board, took away the pay, which was only $112 for each meeting. We meet every 3 months and have no responsibilities, but they expect us to go by the laws of the school board of trustees. I said, it doesn't, we're an advisory board. So
to take away, when they took away the power of our school board, they literally eliminated all tax-paying, concerned citizens of our school. They eliminated our ability to have any rights or say once they removed President Robert Buggs and the rest of our school.
You have no representation because the lady that's making the decision, she is not an elected official.
And she don't live here.
They are not elected officials.
And she don't live in Gary.
No, she doesn't. But it's not necessary. You know,
I understand it's not necessary, but she don't pay no taxes here.
I mean, the powers that be that's paying her allow her to do that. But I want the people to know I do have a lawsuit but I'm challenging that referendum, and it's not over yet. The hearing is going to be sometime pretty soon because the law says it has to be done by an elected person, elected. Now, the governing body is not, you can't transfer a governing body. In other words, you take, say, the planning commission in Gary, they cannot supplant the city council. The city council make laws. These committees, they don't make laws. So that's what we have. But they treat us as if we in some third world country. And if you complain like me, well, I'm the bad guy. Well,
right. Well, you know what, Mr. Bugs? You know what we're going to do more often? We're going to come on here, and whenever you have time, we're going to tell people about their rights.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they currently, still today, even though it feels like we don't, federally, we have a right to due process, and we have a right to be enfranchised. We have a right to enfranchisement. So even though the state of Indiana has allowed such a takeover, it's illegal, and any harm that's been done to our students, any failure in grading, all of the downgrades, the state is responsible for. And so we need to make sure we understand it's not over when it comes to being able to speak up and have a say for school buildings. It's not over. You can still have a say over school buildings. You can still have a say over if you feel like they were fair or not with anything dealing with the school system. You still have a say. The biggest thing you have is your voice. But what they want to do is make you stay quiet. But if that happens, if they take away our ability to manage our school system, in Flint, they took away the council's right. So the councilman and the mayor in Flint, Michigan, the school board had no rights. The mayor had no rights, and the council had no rights under their emergency management. And I believe even happened like that to Detroit, but I know it happened to Flint. So if we don't stand up, they may well and able come in here and take over the council, because they'll say, well, you can't govern yourself. You're busy fighting the mayor, and you can't get anything done. And too many citizens are complaining that you aren't doing anything. And we're going to come in here and take over since you don't know how to govern your local city, and remove the council like they did in Flint. So all I got to say as a prophetess right now, and I'm going to end on this. God told me to come home because there was going to be an extreme attack that was going to take place across the country on Black people. But he said, he told me to come home because there was going to be something extremely, this was about 6-7 years ago. There's going to be something extremely targeted towards Gary. And as soon as I landed in Gary, I think I got here in 16. I think, when did the takeover happen? What year?
2017.
I got here, I believe, December 2016. And that's when I finally landed in Gary. And then the takeover happened. And then God put me in a position to go toe to toe with this superintendent, emergency manager.
Well, do you know that?
And I'm going to go toe to toe with the truth with this emergency manager who thinks that they can come to our city and treat Black people with total disregard and disrespect, like she's a master over us. And that's it. God said to do it, and I'm going to stand. And I don't care how the chips may fall. I'm going to do what God told me to do. And if I lose every friend and all support, I'm okay, because I know who is on my side.
Well, I want to say just a couple of things. I'm glad you came. When we got sworn in 2017, the current school board, we have not made a decision on anything, period. But we are blamed for squandering money that happened 14 years ago. And one other thing I want to say, I am not racist, but a lot of our black leaders think that Robert Buggs is supposed to bow down and be humble to a white person who's in government making decisions in order to get a favorable so-called pebble morsel. I'm not going to do that. I
I
mean,
don't bow down to any person, black or white. If you're not doing it in a just and equitable way, black or white, my job is to say so as a prophetess. And just so happened that the people that's really, really disenfranchising us as a people right now, the ones with the most power that a lot of us think we got to bow down to and say please to, they're masters in their mind. They are massa.
of course. I mean, if
I
you,
don't
if you
bow
let
down to
somebody
massa.
do it,
Massa gonna have to kill me.
if you let them do
I'm
it, I
not
mean,
doing it.
they're going to keep on doing it if you let them do it. And I
Yeah, they're
refuse to
gonna
bow
keep
down
on
to
doing it.
anybody.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, tonight on Elevate, we say to you, we see all the brutality taking place with police throughout the country, even though we don't have those type of problems like that here. But we want to make sure that everyone understands that white supremacy has a plan that's longer and bigger than we can imagine. They have 50-year and 100-year plans under the white supremacists. You can go look it up. They got 50-year and 100-year plans of domination and purposeful economic devastation. And they do not want us to have voting rights. They do not want us to have a voice. And right now, we are experiencing that type of disenfranchisement of taking away our voting rights and our voice from this emergency manager in Gary, Indiana. So I just want to make sure we know that. So on Elevate, we're going to start learning how to use our voices, operate in faith and not fear, and let them know you're not going to run over Gary. We got too much history. We're too much of a strong people, and we do have people that got their eyes on you, and we're going to shift this back in our favor. So elevating your mind, get out of begging and pleading, and start understanding you got the right to demand. You pay the taxes, you pay their salaries, you own every building in the city that's paid for by taxes. All right, Mr. Robert Buggs, you have any last words, and we're going to close out.
yes, I like the title Elevate. We need to elevate the people's consciousness of what you are, who you are, what you stand for. Especially if we have children and grandchildren looking up to us, they're saying, okay, you did everything the system wanted you to do, went to school, got 2 master's degrees, and can't make a doggone decision about anything about their education in my city, and none of them lives here. And the people that look like me, some of them that lives in Gary, say that I'm wrong. You should be quiet. You know, don't urge them. Don't make them mad. Well, I'm not saying.
All
Anyway,
right.
anyway,
Well, they've proven who they are. It's on paper, Mr. Buggs.
yeah.
They've proven, the scores have proven it. Their decisions have proven who they are. And now it's about, you know what, just not being afraid to talk about it. So thank you so much, Mr. Buggs, for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having
We
me.
look forward to having you on again on Elevate.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, everyone, I want to thank you so much for coming in on tonight to have an understanding about the CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, and also civil rights. So tonight we talked a lot about trying to give you information as to what to do to be to move in faith and not fear, and how we can better our city here in Gary, Indiana. If you need to reach out to Mr. Bugs, you can find him on Facebook. His name is Robert Bugs on Facebook. And of course, you know how to reach me, Dr. Talithia Barrett, on Facebook. Until next time, have a great one. God bless.